The fluorescent lights in the community center basement hummed. Not loudly, but just enough to fill the silence when no one else would. I spent a lot of time listening to that hum during those first weeks. It was safer than listening to the stories. They called it a grief support group, but that made it sound warm. Supportive. Like something with blankets and tea. This room was neither of those things. It was cinder block walls painted a shade of beige that tried too hard to be comforting and failed completely. Folding chairs in a circle. Tissues on every seat because the cheap ones were in the center of the table, and no one wanted to be the person who had to stand up and walk for them. I sat in the back corner. Every week, same chair. Not because I was shy, but because I needed the wall behind me. Needed to know nothing could sneak up from behind. Grief had already done that once. I wasn't giving it another chance. My name is Liam. 8 months before that first meeting, I had a wife. Her name was Elena. She died on a Tuesday. A Tuesday in October when the leaves were just starting to turn, and she texted me that morning asking if I wanted apples from the orchard on her way home. I said yes. I always said yes to her. The police came to my door at 7:43 that night. I remember the clock on the microwave because I was staring at it while the officer spoke. Red numbers. 7:43. She was gone. Drunk driver ran a red light. Quick, they said. She didn't suffer, they said. As if that mattered. As if the speed of death changed the weight of it. For 8 months I moved through life like a man underwater. Everything muffled. Everything slow. I kept going to work because the alternative was staying home, and home was worse. Home was her shampoo still in the shower. Her book on the nightstand with the page turned down. Her coffee mug in the sink that I couldn't bring myself to wash because her lipstick was still on the rim. My brother made me come to the group. He said I needed to talk to people who understood. I told him I didn't want to understand. I wanted to go back. He showed up at my apartment every Tuesday for 6 weeks until I finally got in the car just to make him stop. That's how I ended up in the beige room with the humming lights and the folding chairs and the tissues on every seat. The group leader was a woman named Diane with kind eyes and a voice so soft it made everything she said sound like a question. She'd introduce a topic. Loss of identity. Coping with anniversaries. When to take down their things. And then she'd wait. People talked. A man whose wife died of cancer after 43 years of marriage. A young woman whose fiancé overdosed 6 weeks before the wedding. A mother whose son was killed in Afghanistan. They talked and cried and sometimes laughed in that hollow way people laugh when they've forgotten what real joy sounds like. I never talked. I sat in my corner with my arms crossed and my jaw tight and I listened to the hum. Then I noticed her. She sat 3 chairs to my left. Not in the circle exactly, but slightly behind it, like she'd pulled her chair back just enough to be present without being part of things. I understood that instinctively. The need to be in the room but not of it. She was young. Maybe early 30s. Dark hair pulled back in a way that looked practical rather than intentional. No makeup. A sweater that was too big for her, the sleeves pulled down over her hands. She never spoke either. She just sat there with her eyes on the floor, holding a tissue she never used, her thumb tracing the edge of it over and over. I didn't know her name for weeks. I just knew she was there. A presence in my peripheral vision. Another person drowning in the same dark water. Then one night, Diane asked a question that broke something open in me. What's one thing you wish you'd said? The room got quieter. Even the hum seemed to fade. The man who lost his wife to cancer spoke first. I wish I'd told her she was beautiful more. I thought she knew. She probably knew. But I should have said it. The mother of the soldier spoke next. I wish I'd told him it was okay to come home. He felt guilty, you know? Surviving when his friends didn't. I wish I'd said it didn't matter. Just come home. Around the circle it went. Regrets. Unspoken words. The weight of all the things we'd left unsaid. When it came to me, I opened my mouth for the first time in that room. The words came out rough, like they'd been sitting in my throat too long. I wish I'd said no to the apples. Diane tilted her head. Gentle. Curious. Tell us about that. I told her yes. She asked if I wanted apples from the orchard, and I said yes. If I'd said no, she would have come straight home. She would have been early. She would have missed the light. The silence that followed was the kind that wraps around you. Not empty. Full. Full of understanding. Then, from 3 chairs to my left, a voice. Soft. Shaky. But clear. That's not how it works. I looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time. She was looking back at me, and her eyes were wet but her face was steady. The guilt, she said. It finds other ways. Other lights. Other apples. You can't outrun it by changing the details. I've tried. She looked away then, back at the floor, her thumb finding the tissue again. But something had passed between us. A recognition. A silent agreement that we were both fighting the same invisible war. After the meeting, I found her outside, standing under the single streetlight in the parking lot, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. Hey, I said. Stupid. Inadequate. But it was all I had. She turned. Hey. I'm Liam. Sarah. We stood there for a long moment, neither of us knowing what to say next. 2 strangers bonded by the worst thing that had ever happened to us. Can I ask you something? I said. She nodded. How did you know? About the guilt. About the details not mattering. She looked down at the pavement, then back at me. Because I was supposed to pick up my husband from work that night. But Lily had a fever. Our daughter. She was only 2. So I stayed home. He took an Uber. The driver fell asleep at the wheel. The words landed in my chest like stones. One by one. Heavy and cold. You think it's your fault, I said. It wasn't a question. I think if I'd just gone to get him like I always did, he'd be alive. I think if I'd checked on Lily 5 minutes earlier, maybe she wouldn't have had a fever at all and I would have gone. I think about it every night. Every single night. The different ways it could have gone. The different choices I could have made. I nodded. I understood completely. But you're wrong, she said softly. And I'm wrong. It wasn't the apples. It wasn't the fever. It was a drunk driver and a tired driver. People who made choices we didn't make for us. That's the only truth that matters. Everything else is just torture we invent for ourselves. She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her too big sweater and gave me a smile that was small and sad and somehow still real. I'm Sarah, she said, like we hadn't already done that part. I know. You said. I know I said. I'm saying it again. Sometimes you have to say things more than once before they stick. I didn't know then what she meant by that. Not fully. But I would learn. We talked for another 20 minutes in that parking lot. About nothing and everything. About her daughter Lily, who was 3 now and asked every night when Daddy was coming home. About my house that still smelled like Elena shampoo even though I'd used the whole bottle myself just trying to wash her away. About the impossibility of moving forward when every step felt like a betrayal of the person you left behind. When we finally said goodnight, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 months. Not hope exactly. That was too strong a word. But a crack in the numbness. A tiny opening where light might eventually find its way in. The next Tuesday, I sat in my usual corner. She sat in hers. But after the meeting, we found each other in the parking lot again. And the Tuesday after that. And the Tuesday after that. We never planned it. We never said, see you next week. We just kept showing up. 2 people who understood that grief wasn't a problem to be solved but a weight to be carried. And somehow, carrying it together made it just slightly lighter. That was before Lily. Before the wedding. Before I let myself believe that the universe might give me a second chance at happiness after everything it had taken. That was before the DNA test arrived in the mail and burned my entire world to the ground. But in those early days, standing under that parking lot light with Sarah, I didn't know any of that. I only knew that for the first time since 7:43 on a Tuesday in October, I didn't feel completely alone. And that was enough. The parking lot conversations became coffee shops. Coffee shops became dinners. Dinners became something I didn't have a name for yet, something careful and precious and terrifying. Sarah was the first person I told about Elena beyond the bare facts. Not just that she died, but who she was. The way she laughed with her whole body. The way she sang in the car even when she didn't know the words. The way she left her socks everywhere, little cotton reminders of her presence in every room. Sarah listened like she was collecting these details, holding them carefully, honoring them. In return, she told me about Daniel. Her husband. His obsession with grilling techniques. The way he read bedtime stories using different voices for every character. How he proposed on a Tuesday because ordinary days deserve extraordinary moments. She smiled when she talked about him. A real smile, even with tears in her eyes. "You still love him," I said one night. "Of course I do. That doesn't stop. Does it stop for you?" "No. It changes, but it doesn't stop." She nodded like I'd confirmed something she already knew. "My mother says I need to let go. Move on. She means well, but she doesn't understand. It's not a choice. It's like asking me to stop breathing." "I know exactly what you mean." We sat with that understanding, two people who spoke the same language now. The language of loving someone who wasn't coming back. 3 months after that first parking lot conversation, she invited me to meet Lily. "I don't do that," she said carefully. "Bring men around her." "I haven't. Not once. But she asks about you. She sees me leave on Tuesdays and come home different. Lighter. She's 4 now. She notices everything." I felt the weight of what she was offering. The trust it required. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. But I need you to understand something. If this doesn't work out between us, that's one thing. We are adults. We'll survive. But if you hurt her, if you become someone in her life and then disappear, I will never forgive you. And I will make sure you never forgive yourself either." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Delivered quietly, steadily, with the absolute certainty of a mother protecting her child. "I understand," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." Lily was small for 4. Dark hair like her mother, but her father's eyes. Big and curious and taking in everything at once. She stood behind Sarah's legs when I walked in, one hand clutching her mother's jeans, the other holding a stuffed rabbit by the ear. "This is Liam," Sarah said softly. "He's my friend." Lily studied me for a long moment. Then, "Do you like rabbits?" "I like rabbits very much." "Bunny is a rabbit. He's soft. You can pet him if you want." I knelt down slowly, not wanting to tower over her. I reached out and touched the stuffed rabbit's ear with one finger. "He's very soft. You take good care of him." "I know. He's my best friend. But Mama says I can have more than one best friend. Do you want to be my best friend too?" I looked up at Sarah, who was watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Hope and fear and love all tangled together. "I would be honored to be your best friend, Lily." She smiled then, a gap-toothed 4-year-old smile that hit me somewhere in the chest I thought had gone numb forever. "Okay. You can sit on the couch. But not on Bunny. He doesn't like being sat on." That was the beginning. I started coming over on Sundays. Then Sundays and Wednesdays. Then Sundays and Wednesdays and Saturday mornings when Sarah had to work and needed someone to watch Lily. I taught Lily how to ride a tricycle. I learned which food she'd actually eat and which ones she'd just push around her plate. I read her bedtime stories and learned that her father had done the voices too, so I asked her which voices he used and I used the same ones. Sarah watched all of this. I'd catch her in the kitchen doorway sometimes, just watching us, her hand pressed to her mouth like she was holding something in. I never asked what she was feeling in those moments. I didn't need to. I felt it too. The first time I kissed her was on a Sunday evening after Lily fell asleep on the couch during a movie. I carried her to bed, tucked her in, and came back to find Sarah standing in the kitchen, crying silently. "Hey," I said, moving to her. "What is it?" She shook her head, wiping at her eyes. "Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Watching you with her. The way you carried her. Daniel used to carry her like that. Same way. Same careful hands. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there, present. I didn't think I'd ever see anyone hold my daughter like that again, she whispered. I didn't think I'd ever want anyone to. I reached out and touched her face. She leaned into my palm like it was the most natural thing in the world. And then I kissed her. Soft and slow and full of everything we hadn't said out loud yet. When we pulled apart, she laughed. A real laugh. The first one I'd heard from her. What? I asked. I just realized something. What? I'm happy. Right now. I'm actually happy. I forgot what that felt like. I kissed her again because I didn't have words for what I felt. But if I did, they would have been the same. We got married a year later. Small ceremony in a park. Just us, Lily, a few friends, and the memory of two people who couldn't be there but somehow felt present anyway. I said my vows looking at Sarah, but I felt Elena there too. Not as a ghost. Not as a warning. Just as a presence. A quiet acknowledgement that love doesn't end. It just changes shape. Lily was 5 by then. She wore a flower crown and carried a basket of petals she threw at exactly the wrong moments because she thought it was funnier that way. She was right. After the ceremony, she tugged on my hand. Liam. Yeah, baby. Are you my dad now? I knelt down to her level. The word hit me hard. Dad. I hadn't expected it. Hadn't prepared for it. Your mom and I are married now, I said carefully. So that means I'm your stepdad. But I love you like you're my own daughter. I've loved you like that for a long time. She considered this seriously. But can I call you Dad? My friend Sophie calls her stepdad Dad. She says it's the same thing but with extra. I looked at Sarah. She was crying again, but smiling, nodding. Yeah, Lily. You can call me Dad. She threw her arms around my neck and squeezed hard. Okay, Dad. Love you. I held her and tried to remember how to breathe. That night, after Lily was asleep and the last guests had gone home, Sarah and I sat on our porch watching the stars. She's never called anyone that before, Sarah said quietly. Not since Daniel. She was too young to really remember him, but she knew. She always knew. Tonight was different. Different how? She chose you. Not because I told her to. Not because she felt like she had to. Because she loves you. Because you're her dad now. In every way that matters. I took her hand. I love you. Both of you. I didn't think I'd ever have this again. I didn't think I deserved it. You do. We both do. That's the thing about grief, Liam. It tricks you into believing you're permanently broken. That happiness is something other people get. But it's not true. We are here. We are together. We are okay. For 2 years, we were more than okay. We were whole. I coached Lily's soccer team even though I knew nothing about soccer. I made pancakes on Sunday mornings shaped like animals even though they mostly looked like blobs. I took Sarah on dates and reminded her she was beautiful and held her when the grief still snuck up on her, which it did sometimes, late at night, when she thought I was asleep. We built a life. A real one. Messy and ordinary and precious in ways I'd never understood before losing everything. I thought the hard part was over. I thought the universe had tested us and decided we'd passed. I thought we'd earned our happy ending. I thought wrong. It came in a plain white envelope. Official return address from a DNA testing company. The same one Lily's school had used for that genetics project. The one where I'd cheerfully swabbed my cheek and hers, laughing about how we'd find out if she got my terrible eyesight or Sarah's perfect one. I opened it alone at the kitchen table while Sarah was at the grocery store and Lily was at school. The results were detailed. Family connections. Ethnicity estimates. Potential relatives. Potential relatives. There was a name listed under close family matches. A name that stopped my heart cold. Elena Reed. 98.7% probability of parent-child relationship with Lily Reed. Elena. My Elena. The woman who died on a Tuesday in October. The woman I'd mourned for 3 years. The woman whose grave I'd visited every anniversary. The woman whose shampoo still haunted my memories. Alive. And somehow, impossibly, the mother of my wife's daughter. I read it 7 times. Each time the words rearranged themselves, but the meaning stayed the same. Elena was alive. Lily was her biological daughter. Which meant Daniel wasn't Lily's father. Which meant Sarah's husband, the man she'd mourned, the man whose Uber driver fell asleep at the wheel, wasn't Lily's father at all. Elena was. And Elena was alive. The kitchen felt smaller. The walls closer. I gripped the edge of the table and tried to remember how to breathe. Sarah would be home any minute. Lily would be home in 2 hours. And I was sitting at the table holding a piece of paper that could destroy everything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to tell. I didn't know anything except that the woman I'd loved and buried was out there somewhere, breathing the same air, walking the same earth, carrying secrets that had just exploded in the middle of my kitchen. And somewhere in the back of my mind, one question screamed louder than all the others. If she was alive, why did she let me grieve? I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. That was my first instinct. Hide it. Bury it. Pretend I'd never opened the envelope at all. The kitchen felt like a crime scene and I was the guilty one, even though I hadn't done anything except read words someone else printed. Sarah walked in 10 minutes later with grocery bags. She smiled at me, that easy smile she'd worn for 2 years now, the one that said she trusted the world, trusted me, trusted that the worst was behind us. "You okay?" she asked. "You look pale." "Fine. Just tired. Long night." She kissed my cheek and started putting groceries away, chattering about Lily's upcoming school play, about the sale on strawberries, about a funny thing her coworker said. I nodded in the right places, made sounds that passed for responses, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Elena. Alive. Lily's mother. The words didn't fit together. They couldn't fit together. It was like someone had taken 2 different puzzles and mashed them into one box. The pieces were from different pictures. They weren't supposed to connect. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I sat in the living room with the paper spread out on the coffee table. I read it again, and again, and again, each time hoping the words would change, each time watching them stay exactly the same. Elena Reed. Date of birth matching my wife. Location listed as anonymous but match confirmed through DNA database. Parent-child relationship with Lily Reed. 98.7% probability. I thought about the grave. The headstone I'd helped pick out. The words engraved in granite. Beloved wife. Gone too soon. I'd stood at that grave in the rain. I'd talked to her there. Told her about my life, about moving forward, about Sarah. I'd asked for her blessing, like some part of me needed permission from the dead to love again. Had she heard me? Was she laughing? The next morning, I started digging. I told Sarah I had extra work at the office. She kissed me goodbye, handed me a lunch she'd packed, reminded me about Lily's soccer practice. Normal. Ordinary. The kind of morning I'd taken for granted 1,000 times. Instead of going to work, I drove to the county courthouse. Death certificates are public record. I learned that quickly. I also learned that Elena's death certificate existed, signed by a medical examiner, filed and stamped and official. It listed cause of death as blunt force trauma from motor vehicle accident. It listed time of death as 7:43 p.m. on that Tuesday in October. I stared at the document. Real. Official. Government approved. But bodies don't rise from the dead. People don't walk away from car accidents and just disappear. Unless they weren't in the car at all. The accident report was next. I requested it, waited an hour, read it in my car with shaking hands. 2 vehicles. A sedan driven by Elena Reed. A truck driven by a man later convicted of DUI. Head-on collision. Elena pronounced dead at the scene. Body transported to county morgue. I read it 3 times. Then I saw it. A small detail I'd missed in the years of grief, buried in the fine print. Positive identification made by dental records. Not visual. Dental records. Because the body was too damaged for visual identification. My stomach turned cold. I drove to the funeral home next, the one that handled the arrangements. A man named Gerald with grey hair and gentle eyes remembered me. Remembered Elena. Remembered the service. Tough one, he said, shaking his head. That accident. Hard on the families. I need to ask you something, I said. The body. Did you see it? He paused. The gentle eyes flickered with something I couldn't read. Standard procedure. We received the remains from the morgue and prepared them for viewing. But did you see her? Actually see her face? Another pause. Longer this time. Mr. Reed, the family was advised that closed casket was appropriate given the circumstances. The damage was extensive. We worked with what we were given. What we were given. Not what we received. What we were given. You didn't see her face either, I said. It wasn't a question. I saw what was in the body bag. I prepared what was there for burial. I can't tell you with certainty whose face it originally was. That's not my job. My job is to provide dignity to whatever comes through that door. I left with more questions than answers. More suspicion than certainty. But one thing was becoming clear. The woman in that grave might not be Elena. And if she wasn't, then Elena was alive. And if Elena was alive, she'd let me bury a stranger. She'd let me grieve. She'd let me spend 3 years of my life mourning a woman who was walking around somewhere, breathing, eating, living. Why? I spent the next week living a double life. Days with Sarah and Lily, playing the part of husband and father. Nights on my laptop, searching databases, making calls, following digital breadcrumbs. I became someone I didn't recognize. A detective. A liar. A man obsessed. The DNA database was my only real lead. The match was there, concrete and undeniable. But the user was anonymous. Protected by privacy settings. I couldn't see location, couldn't see contact information, couldn't see anything except the name and the match percentage. Elena Reed. She'd submitted her DNA voluntarily. She wanted to be found. Or she didn't care if she was found. Or she never expected anyone she knew to be in the database. Any of those were possible. I created a fake profile. Reached out through the platform's messaging system. A simple, neutral message. I believe we may be connected. Would you be willing to discuss? 3 days later, a response. Who are you? I answered honestly. My name is Liam. I think you knew me once. No response for another 2 days. Then, leave it alone. 4 words. 4 words that confirmed everything. 4 words that told me she knew exactly who I was and wanted me to stop. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I traced the IP address from the message. It took time, research, a few favors from people who owed me. But I found it. A city 3 hours away. A specific neighborhood. A coffee shop with free Wi-Fi she'd used to send the message. I told Sarah I had a work conference. 2 days out of town. She believed me. Why wouldn't she? I'd never given her a reason not to. I drove on a Friday morning. 3 hours of highway, my mind racing faster than the engine. I didn't know what I'd do when I got there. Didn't know if I'd find anything at all. But I had to try. I had to see. I had to know if the woman I'd loved and buried was really out there, walking around, living a life that didn't include me. The coffee shop was small. Local. The kind of place with mismatched furniture and chalkboard menus. I parked across the street and waited. 2 hours. 3. I watched people come and go. Students with laptops. Mothers with strollers. Old men reading newspapers. And then I saw her. She walked out of a building down the street. A residential building with apartments above shops. She was older now. Different hair. Different clothes. But the walk was the same. The way she held her shoulders. The way she tilted her head when she checked her phone. Elena. Alive. She crossed the street toward the coffee shop. Toward me. I sat frozen in my car, heart pounding so loud I was sure she'd hear it. She passed within 20 feet. Close enough to see her face clearly. It was her. No question. No doubt. The same face I'd kissed goodbye on that Tuesday morning. The same face I'd mourned for 3 years. The same face that had haunted my dreams. She walked into the coffee shop. Ordered something. Sat at a table outside with a book. I got out of the car. My legs moved without permission. My feet carried me across the street, onto the sidewalk, toward the table where she sat at a. She looked up when I was 10 feet away. Saw me. Recognized me. For one long second, neither of us moved. Then her face changed. Not surprise. Not fear. Something colder. Something that looked like acceptance. Like she'd always known this moment would come. I stopped at her table. Looked down at the woman I'd loved. The woman I'd buried. The woman who was somehow, impossibly, sitting in front of me drinking coffee on a Friday afternoon. Hello, Elena. She set down her cup. Folded her hands. Looked up at me with eyes that held no warmth, no guilt, no apology. Liam. Just my name. Nothing else. No explanation. No excuse. No joy at seeing me alive. You're alive, I said. Stupid. Obvious. But the only words I had. Yes. 3 years. You've been alive for 3 years. Yes. I mourned you. I buried someone. I visited your grave. She nodded slowly. I know. Who's in that grave, Elena? She looked away for a moment. When she looked back, her eyes were harder than I'd ever seen them. The woman I loved was gone. Someone else sat in her place. It doesn't matter who's in that grave. What matters is that you were never supposed to find me. Why? Why would you do this? Why would you let me think you were dead? She stood up slowly, picked up her coffee, looked me straight in the eye with a calm that terrified me more than any anger could. Because I needed to disappear. And you were collateral damage. I'm sorry for that. Truly. But I'm not sorry I'm alive. And I'm not going back. You owe me an explanation. I owe you nothing. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. Go home, Liam. Go back to your new wife. Go back to your new daughter. Pretend you never found me. That's the only way everyone walks away from this intact. My blood ran cold. How do you know about Sarah? About Lily? She smiled then. A small, cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. I've always known, Liam. I've always known everything. She walked away. Left me standing on the sidewalk with my world crumbling around me and no idea how to put it back together. I didn't follow her. I stood on that sidewalk for I don't know how long, watching the door close behind her, feeling the weight of everything she'd said settle onto my chest like concrete. She knew about Sarah. She knew about Lily. She'd always known. The drive home was automatic. Highway miles passing without memory. Exit signs I didn't register. The sun setting and rising again. I pulled into my driveway at dawn, sat in the car until the engine cooled, tried to compose a face that wouldn't shatter the moment Sarah saw it. She was already awake when I walked in. Standing in the kitchen in her robe, coffee mug in hand, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. You're back early, she said. Conference ended sooner than expected. She nodded. Didn't move. Just stood there, studying me the way she studied Lily when she knew something was wrong but hadn't figured out what yet. Liam. What happened? Nothing. Long drive. I'm tired. You're lying. The words hit like a slap. Not because they were angry, but because they were true. And because Sarah never accused. She always knew. I'm not lying. I'm just processing. She set down her coffee, came closer, took my face in her hands the way she did when she needed me to really see her. Something changed. I can feel it. You've been different for weeks. Distant. Secretive. I thought maybe it was work. Maybe it was stress. But this isn't work. This is something else. I should have told her then. Should have opened my mouth and let the truth pour out. Elena was alive. Lily's biological mother was out there. The foundation of our family was built on a lie I didn't even know existed until 2 weeks ago. But I didn't say any of that. I need to figure some things out, I said. Give me a few days. I'll explain everything. I promise. She searched my face for a long moment. Then she stepped back, nodded slowly. Okay. But Liam, whatever it is, we face it together. That's what we do. That's who we are. She kissed my cheek and went to wake Lily for school. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the sounds of my family starting their day, and felt like a ghost in my own house. I couldn't let it go. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. A man obsessed. A man willing to dig through the darkest corners of the past to find answers. I started with Daniel, Sarah's late husband, the man whose death she'd mourned, the man whose Uber driver fell asleep at the wheel, the man who was supposedly Lily's father. But Lily wasn't his daughter. The DNA test proved that. Elena was her biological mother, which meant Daniel wasn't Lily's father at all. So who was? I found Daniel's death certificate online. Official. Signed. Dated. Everything in order. But something nagged at me. A detail I couldn't place. I went back to Sarah's old photos, the ones she'd shared from before we met. Daniel with baby Lily. Daniel at the hospital. Daniel holding her hours after she was born. The timeline didn't work. Lily was born in June. Daniel died in April, 2 months before her birth. I did the math again. And again. Each time the same result. Daniel died before Lily was born. He couldn't be her father. He was never her father. Sarah had lied. From the very beginning. The story about the fever, the Uber, the driver falling asleep. All of it built around a man who wasn't even Lily's biological parent. But why? I started digging into Daniel's history. Public records. Social media archives. Old news articles. It took days, nights, hours of searching while Sarah slept upstairs, oblivious to the world I was dismantling piece by piece. Then I found it. A news article from 5 years ago. Small local paper. Buried in the archives. Headline: Local businessman questioned in fraud investigation. The businessman was Daniel. The fraud investigation involved large sums of money disappearing from a company he'd managed. The article mentioned associates, co-conspirators, people who hadn't been identified yet. One name stood out. A name mentioned only once, in passing, as someone who'd left the country around the same time the investigation started. Elena Reed. My wife. Alive and well and connected to Daniel in ways I'd never imagined. The pieces started fitting together. Not neatly. Not cleanly. But enough to see the shape of something dark beneath the surface. Elena and Daniel knew each other. They were involved in something illegal together. When it started unraveling, Elena disappeared. Faked her death. Left me behind to mourn a woman who was running from the law. And Daniel? Daniel died. Or did he? I found his death certificate again. Looked closer. Same issue as Elena's. Identification made by dental records. No visual confirmation. No family present to identify the body. Just documents. Paperwork. Official stamps on unofficial truths. 2 people. Both dead on paper. Both connected. Both leaving behind spouses who mourned them. Both possibly alive. The thought made my stomach turn. If Daniel was alive too, then Sarah's grief was built on the same lie as mine. She'd spent years mourning a man who might be walking around somewhere, living another life, never looking back. But she'd lied about the timeline. She'd let me believe Daniel was Lily's father when he couldn't be, which meant she knew something. She'd always known something. I confronted her on a Sunday night. Lily was asleep. We were sitting on the porch, same place we'd sat after our wedding, watching the same stars. I need to ask you something, I said. And I need you to tell me the truth. She looked at me. Fear flickered in her eyes. Just for a second. Then it was gone. Okay. Who is Lily's father? The silence stretched. Long enough to feel permanent. long enough to know the answer before she spoke. I don't know. That's not possible. You know. You've always known. She stood up, wrapped her arms around herself, turned away from me. I don't know his name. I never knew his name. What are you talking about? She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, broken in a way I'd never heard before. Before Daniel, I made mistakes. Bad choices. One of them was a man I met at a bar. One night. Nothing more. I didn't even get his name. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. I was scared. Alone. Then I met Daniel. He didn't care that Lily wasn't his. He loved us both anyway. He wanted to be her father. He was her father. In every way that mattered. I stared at her. The woman I loved. The woman I'd trusted with everything. She was trembling, crying, telling me truths I wasn't prepared to hear. Why didn't you tell me? Because it didn't matter. Because the man from that bar was a stranger. Because Daniel was her dad. Because when you came along, you became her dad too. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. I believed that. I still believe that. You lied to me. I protected my daughter. I protected our family. If you'd known from the beginning that I didn't know who her father was, would you have stayed? Would you have looked at her the same way? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Because the truth was uglier than I wanted to admit. The DNA test, she said slowly. The one from school. That's what this is about, isn't it? You found something. I pulled the paper from my pocket, handed it to her, watched her read it, watched her face change as the words sank in. Elena Reed, she whispered. That's your Elena. Yes. But that's impossible. She's dead. You buried her. I buried someone. But not Elena. She's alive. Sarah. I found her. I talked to her. Sarah's hand shook. The paper trembled. She's Lily's biological mother. How? How is that possible? I don't know. But she knew about you. About Lily. She's been watching. She's always known. Sarah looked up at me, eyes wide with something between fear and horror. What does she want? I don't know that either, but I'm going to find out. I drove back the next morning. Same highway. Same coffee shop. This time I didn't wait. I went straight to the building I'd seen her walk out of. Apartment 3B. I knocked and waited. She opened the door. Elena. Looking tired now. Older. The cold mask from before replaced with something that looked almost human. You came back, she said. I'm not leaving until I understand. She sighed. Stepped aside. Let me in. The apartment was small. Sparse. Like someone who didn't plan to stay long. She gestured to a chair and sat across from me on a worn couch. Ask your questions. Why did you fake your death? Because if I didn't, I'd be in prison or dead. Take your pick. What did you do? She looked at me for a long moment. Then she told me everything. Daniel. The fraud scheme. Money laundering for people who would kill you for looking at them wrong. The investigation closing in. The choice between disappearing and disappearing permanently. Daniel got out first. Faked his death. Left Sarah behind. Left everything behind. I was supposed to join him. But something went wrong. The timeline shifted. I had to go alone. Daniel's alive. She nodded. Somewhere. I don't know where. We haven't spoken since. That was part of the deal. Complete separation. No contact. It was the only way to stay safe. And me? What was I? Collateral damage. She had the decency to look away. You were the hardest part. Leaving you. Letting you believe I was dead. I told myself you'd move on. Find someone else. Be happy. I told myself a lot of things to get through the nights. You watched me. You knew about Sarah. About Lily. Of course I did. You think I could just forget you existed? I've kept tabs on you from day one. Saw you at the support group. Saw you with Sarah. Saw you with Lily. I told myself it was better this way. You were happy. I was alive. Everyone got what they needed. Except the truth. She met my eyes. The truth would have gotten you killed. Gotten Sarah killed. Gotten Lily killed. The people Daniel and I were involved with don't forgive. They don't forget. They find you and they end you. Dead meant safe. Dead meant free. Dead was the only gift I could give you. I sat there, absorbing words that should have meant something but just felt hollow. Excuses. Justifications. Too little and too late. What now? I asked. She leaned forward. Her face serious. Her voice low. Now you go home. You forget you found me. You live your life with Sarah and Lily and you never speak of this again. Because if those people find out I'm alive, they'll come looking. And when they do, they won't just find me. They'll find everyone I ever loved. Including you. Is that a threat? It's a warning. The only one you're going to get. I'm sorry, Liam. For everything. But sorry doesn't change anything. Go home. Protect your family. And pray they never learn my name. 3 hours of highway and I remembered none of it. Just flashes. Elena's face. Her warning. The weight of knowing that the woman I'd loved and mourned was alive, but loving her back would cost me everything. Sarah was waiting on the porch when I pulled in. Same porch where we'd watch stars on our wedding night. Same porch where she told me about Lily's father. Same porch where our life together had started to crack. She stood when I got out of the car. Didn't move toward me. Just waited, arms wrapped around herself, eyes searching my face for answers I didn't know how to give. Well, she said. I sat on the step. She sat beside me. Close enough to feel her warmth but not touching. A foot of space that felt like miles. She's alive, I said. Elena is alive. She faked her death to escape people who wanted to hurt her. Daniel was involved too. He's probably alive as well. Sarah went still. Completely still. Like the words had frozen her from the inside. Daniel, she whispered. My Daniel. Lily's father. The man you knew as Daniel. Yes. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. He let me grieve. He let me raise our daughter alone. He let me sit in that support group for 2 years, crying over a man who was walking around somewhere, alive, choosing to stay dead. Yes. He wasn't Lily's father. He knew that. I told him about that night at the bar. I told him everything. He said it didn't matter. He said he'd always be her dad. And then he left. He just left. I didn't have words. There were no words for a betrayal that deep. For the kind of lie that rewrites someone's entire history. The people they were involved with, I said slowly. Elena says they're dangerous. The kind of dangerous that kills families, not just people. She says if anyone finds out she's alive, they'll come looking. And they won't stop at her. Sarah turned to look at me. What does that mean for us? For Lily? It means we have a choice. We can tell the truth. Expose everything. Let the authorities handle it and hope they can protect us. Or we can bury it. Go back to our lives. Pretend we never found out any of this. Pretend, she repeated. The word tasted bitter. Pretend my husband isn't alive somewhere. Pretend your wife isn't alive somewhere. Pretend Lily's whole existence isn't built on a foundation of lies. Yes. She stood up. Started pacing. The same restless energy I'd seen in her during the worst nights of grief, when the loss was too fresh to sleep through. If we tell the truth, we risk everything. Lily's safety. Our safety. But if we don't tell the truth, we become part of the lie. We spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, wondering if today's the day someone finds out. Wondering if Elena's warning was real or just another manipulation. I know. And we have to live with ourselves, with the knowledge that we chose silence over justice, over honesty, over everything we've built our marriage on. I stood too, faced her, took her hands in mine. I know all of that. I've been turning it over in my mind for 3 days. There's no right answer, Sarah. There's only the answer we can live with. She searched my face, looking for something. Certainty, maybe. Or direction. Or just confirmation that she wasn't alone in this impossible moment. "What do you want to do?" she asked. The question hung between us. Heavy. Final. The kind of question that doesn't have a good answer, only a true one. "I want to protect Lily," I said. "That's all I care about. Everything else is secondary. If telling the truth puts her in danger, I'll lie to the whole world and never lose sleep. If keeping the secret keeps her safe, I'll carry it to my grave. She's my daughter. In every way that matters. And I will not let anyone take her from me. Not Elena. Not Daniel. Not the people they're running from. Not even the truth." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. But she was nodding. Understanding. "She's mine too," she whispered. "I carried her. I raised her. I chose Daniel because he loved her. I chose you because you loved her. She's the only thing in this world that's purely good. The only thing I've ever done right." Then we agree. We protect her. No matter what. No matter what. We stood there on the porch, holding each other, making a decision that would define the rest of our lives. Choosing silence. Choosing each other. Choosing Lily. But choices have consequences. And some consequences don't wait. 3 weeks passed. We went back to life. School runs and soccer practice and Sunday pancakes shaped like animals. Sarah laughed at my jokes. Lily asked for bedtime stories. We played the parts so well we almost believed them. Almost. But at night, when the house was dark and the girls were sleeping, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if every shadow held a threat. If every unfamiliar car on our street meant something. If the peace we'd chosen was real or just the calm before a storm we couldn't see coming. Then the letter arrived. Plain white envelope. No return address. Addressed to me. Inside, one sentence typed on plain paper. "I told you to leave it alone. Now they know." I read it 5 times. Each reading colder than the last. Sarah found me at the kitchen table, the paper in my hand, my face white as the envelope. "What is it?" Wordlessly, I handed it to her. Watched her read. Watched the color drain from her face too. "What does this mean?" she whispered. "Who knows? What do they know?" "I don't know. But we can't stay here." We moved fast. Packed bags. Grabbed important papers. Lily woke up confused, asking questions we couldn't answer. Sarah told her we were going on an adventure. A spontaneous trip. Lily accepted this with the easy trust of a 7-year-old who'd never known real danger. We were in the car, backing out of the driveway, when the headlights appeared. 2 cars. Blocking both ends of the street. Dark sedans with no visible plates. Men got out. 4 of them. Suits. Calm movements. The kind of calm that comes from doing this before. I looked at Sarah. She looked at me. Lily was in the backseat, headphones on, watching a tablet, oblivious. "I love you," I said. "I love you too. Whatever happens, keep Lily safe." She nodded. Squeezed my hand. Braced herself. One of the men approached my window. Tapped on the glass. I rolled it down. "Liam Reed." "Yes." "We need to talk. About Elena. About Daniel. About what you know." My heart hammered. My mind raced. But my voice stayed steady. "I don't know what you're talking about." The man smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile that knows something you don't. "Your wife is alive. Your daughter's biological mother is alive. The man who raised her is alive. You've been living in a house built on secrets. We are here to help you decide what to do with them." "Help us how?" He glanced at the back seat. At Lily, still watching her tablet, still oblivious. When he looked back at me, something in his eyes shifted. Almost human. Almost. We are not the ones Elena was running from. We are the ones who've been watching them, making sure they stayed hidden, making sure no one got hurt. But now that you've found her, now that you've stirred things up, the other side knows. They are coming, and you have a choice to make. What choice? You can come with us. We'll take you somewhere safe. New identities. New life. Elena and Daniel will disappear again. You'll never see them. Never hear from them. Your daughter grows up safe. And the other option? He didn't answer right away. Didn't need to. Stay here. Hope they don't find you. Hope they don't find Lily. Hope the men who kill families for information don't decide to use you as an example. Sarah spoke from beside me. Her voice steady. Strong. What guarantee do we have that you're any different? The man looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I saw something like respect in his expression. No guarantees. Only choices. Same as always. I looked at Sarah. She looked at me. Lily hummed in the backseat, lost in her show, trusting us completely. Where would we go? I asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't find you. You'll lose your names. Your history. Your friends. But you'll keep each other. You'll keep her. I thought about the life we'd built. The house. The memories. The grave I'd visited for 3 years that held a stranger's bones. The wife who wasn't dead. The husband who wasn't dead. The daughter caught in the middle of it all. I thought about the stars on our wedding night. The sound of Lily laughing. The way Sarah looked at me like I was enough, even when I didn't feel like enough. 1 hour, I said. Give us 1 hour. The man nodded. Stepped back. The cars stayed where they were. I turned to Sarah. Took her face in my hands the way she'd taken mine so many times. What do we do? She looked at me. Steady. Strong. The woman who'd survived grief and found love again. The woman who'd chosen me when she could have chosen alone. We protect Lily. That's all that matters. That's always been all that matters. So we go. We go. We disappear. We become someone else. Anyone else. As long as we are together. I kissed her. Soft. Slow. A promise and a goodbye to everything we'd been. Then I looked in the backseat at Lily. My daughter. The girl who'd called me dad and meant it. The girl who deserved a life without fear, without running, without knowing the darkness that surrounded her existence. Hey, Lily. She looked up, pulled one headphone off. Yeah, Dad. How do you feel about a really long road trip? She grinned. That gap-toothed, 7-year-old grin that could light up any darkness. Can we get ice cream? I laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in weeks. We can get all the ice cream you want, baby. All of it. Sarah squeezed my hand. The man outside waited. The dark sedans idled at both ends of the street. And in the backseat, Lily put her headphones back on and went back to her show, completely unaware that her world was about to end and begin again in the span of a single night. I put the car in drive. Looked at the man outside. Nodded once. He nodded back. And we drove toward whatever came next. Together. Alive. Choosing each other over everything else. Because in the end, that's all any of us can do. Choose love. Choose family. Choose to protect the people who matter most. And hope that somewhere down the road, the truth stops hurting long enough to let you breathe.